Jayom Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Astata Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnu Pada Paramahansa Parivajakacharya Astata Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Chikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Jai. Gaur Premanandi Yadi Yadi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Chudaya Krishna Pastar Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivinoda Swami Jayani Namaste Saraswati Devi Vani Vachani Shri Shri Sundari Vastari Starni. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 12. And it says on the board 5 to 10, but yesterday the speaker read 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to start with 8, so 8, 9, and 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, verse 8. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit until we get to 10, which is on the board. My dear Lord, your Lordship alone is the cause and effect. Therefore, although you appear to be two, you are the absolute one. As there is no difference between the gold of a golden ornament and the gold in a mine, there is no difference between cause and effect. Both of them are the same. Only because of ignorance do people concoct differences and dualities. You are free from material contamination, and since the entire cosmos is caused by you and cannot exist without you, it is an effect of your transcendental qualities. Thus, the conception that Brahman is true and the world false cannot be maintained. So this is a prayer, continuing prayers by Lord Shiva to the Supreme Lord. And it's a very, very long purport. So I hope everybody stays awake. Purport. Srila Prabhupada writes, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the living entities are representations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's marginal potency, whereas the various bodies accepted by the living entities are products of the material energy. Thus, the body is considered material and the soul is considered spiritual. The origin of them both, however, is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. As the Lord explains in Bhagavad Gita 7, 4, and 5, Bhumirapo nalo vayu kamano buddharevacha ahankara ityame bina prakritirashtada apareyam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam daryate jagat. Translation: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. But besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. That's the end of the translation. Thus, both matter and the living entities are manifestations of energy of the Supreme Lord. Since the energy and the energetic are not different, and since the material and marginal energies are both energies of the Supreme Energetic, the Supreme Lord, ultimately, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is everything. In this regard, the example may be given of gold that has not been molded, and gold that has been molded into various ornaments. So do you notice that Prabhupada is giving the exact example that's in the verse? He's practically quoting it. And the verse is saying, as there is no difference between the gold of a golden ornament and the gold in a mine, there is no difference between cause and effect. So in this, basically, Prabhupada is making an argument or proving that everything is Krishna. There is nothing that's not Krishna, even though the Mayavadis make a distinction. But Srila Prabhupada, in this long purport, is saying that Krishna is everything. And so he's, again, using this example of gold. So a gold earring and the gold in a mine are different only as cause and effect. Otherwise, they are the same. The Vedanta Sutra describes that Brahman is the cause of everything. Janmadi yasya yataha. Everything is born of the Supreme Brahman, from which everything emanates as different energies. None of these energies, therefore, should be considered false. The Mayavadi's differentiation between Brahman and Maya is only due to ignorance. Srimad Viragava Acharya, in his Bhagavat Chandra Chandrika, describes the Vaishnava philosophy as follows. The cosmic manifestation is described as Sat and Asat, as Chit and Achit. Matter is Achit, and the living force is Chit. But their origin is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in whom there is no difference between matter and spirit. According to this conception, the cosmic manifestation, consisting of both matter and spirit, is not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Idam hi Vishwan Bhagavan Ive Taraha. This cosmic manifestation is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although it appears different from him. In Bhagavad Gita 9:4, the Lord says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavyakthamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastita. Translation of that verse, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. That's end of quote. Thus, although someone may say that the Supreme Person is different from the cosmic manifestation, actually he is not. The Lord says, Maya tatam idam sarvam. In my impersonal feature, I am spread throughout the world. Therefore, this world is not different from him. The difference is a difference in names. For example, whether we speak of gold earrings, gold bangles, or gold necklaces, ultimately, they are all gold. In a similar way, all the different manifestations of matter and spirit are ultimately one in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ekam eva dvitiyam brahma. This is the Vedic version, Chandogya Upanishad 6.2.1. There is oneness because everything emanates from the Supreme Brahman. The example already given is that there is no difference between a golden earring and the gold mine as it is. The Vaisheshika philosophers, however, because of their Mayavad conception, create differences. They say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mritya, which means the absolute truth is real and the cosmic manifestation is false. That's the whole translation. But why should the Jagat be considered Mithya? The Jagat is an emanation from Brahman. Therefore, the Jagat is also truth. So here Prabhupada is really throwing a punch at the Mayavad philosophy. Vaishnavas, therefore, do not consider Jagat to be Mithya. Rather, they regard everything as reality in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anashaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjataha nirbanda krishna sambande yukta vairagyam uchyate prapanchikataya budya hari sambandi vastunaha mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. Translation: the things should be accepted for the Lord's service and not for one's personal sense gratification. If one accepts something without attachment and accepts it because it is related to Krishna, one's renunciation is called yukta vairagyam. Whatever is favorable for the rendering of service to the Lord should be accepted and should not be rejected as a material thing. The quote is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1, 2, 255 and 256. The Jagat should not be rejected as mithya. It is truth, and the truth is realized when everything is engaged in the service of the Lord. A flower accepted for one's sense gratification is material, but when the same flower is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by a devotee, it is spiritual. Food taken and cooked for oneself is material, but food cooked for the Supreme Lord is spiritual prasad. This is a question of realization. Actually, everything is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore everything is spiritual. But those who are not advanced in proper knowledge make distinctions because the interactions of the three modes of nature. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami says that although the sun is only light, the sunshine, which is exhibited in 7 colors, and darkness, which is the absence of sunshine, are not different from the sun. For without the existence of the sun, such differentiations cannot exist. There may be varied nomenclature because of different conditions, but they are all the sun. The Puranas therefore say, Eke disha stitasya jyotsna vishtarani yata parasya brahmana shaktis tatedam akilam jagat. Just as the illumination of a fire, which is situated in one place, is spread all over, the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Para Brahman, are spread all over this universe. Vishnu Purana 1:22-53. Materially, we can directly perceive the sunshine spreading itself according to different names and activities, but ultimately the sun is one. Similarly, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, everything is an expansion of the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is everything, and He is one without differentiation. There is no existence separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So do you think Srila Prabhupada has defeated the Mayavadi philosophy in this purport? Yeah, I think pretty thoroughly. So we're going on to text 9, which doesn't have a purport. Those who are known as the impersonalist Vedantists regard you as the impersonal Brahman. Others, known as the Mimamsaka philosophers, regard you as religion. The Shankya philosophers regard you as the transcendental person who is beyond Prakriti and Purusha, and who is the controller of even the demigods. The followers of the codes of devotional service, known as the Pancharatras, regard you as being endowed with the 9 different potencies. And the Patanjala philosophers, the followers of Patanjali Muni, regard you as the supreme independent personality of Godhead, who has no equal or superior. Okay, now text 10, which is on the board. It's the very long meter, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right. Let's see. Naham parayor rasayo namarichi mukya. Jananti yad virachitam kalu satvasarga. Yanmaya muchita chetasa isha daitya. Martya dayakim utashashvad abhadra vritaha. Naham parayor rasayo namarichi mukya. Jananti yadvarichatam kalo satvasargaha. Yanmaya musita chetasa isha daitya. Martya dayakim utashashvad abhadra vritaha. Please chant. Naham barayor rasato namurichi mukya. Jananti yad parichatam kalu satvasarga. Yanmaya musita chetasa isha daitya. Yamuta satvada bhaja vita. Ladies, please. Na, neither. Aham, I. Para ayu. that personality who lives for millions and millions of years, Lord Brahma, Rasa, the 7 rishis of the 7 planets, Na, Nor, Marichi Mukya, headed by Marichi Rishi, Jananti, no, Yat, by whom the Supreme Lord, Virachitam, this universe which has been created, Kalu, indeed, Shashva Sarga, although born in the mode of material goodness, Yat Mayaya, by the influence of whose energy, Musita Chetasa, their hearts are bewildered, Isha, O my Lord, Daitya, the demons, Martya Adjaya, the human beings and others, Kim Uta, what to speak of, Shashvat, always, Abhadravritaha, influenced by the base qualities of material nature. Translation. O my Lord, I, who am considered to be the best of the demigods, and Lord Brahma and the great rishis headed by Marichi, are born of the mode of goodness. Nonetheless, we are bewildered by your illusory energy and cannot understand what this creation is. Aside from us, what is to be said of others, like the demons and human beings, who are in the base modes of material nature, Rajaguna and Tamaguna? How will they know you? Please repeat. O my Lord, I, who am considered to be the best of the demigods, and Lord Brahma and the great rishis, headed by Marichi, are born of the mode of goodness. Nonetheless, we are bewildered by your illusory energy and cannot understand what this creation is. Aside from us, what is to be said of others, like the demons and human beings, who are in the base modes of material nature, Rajaguna and Tamaguna? How will they know you? So again, this is Lord Shiva speaking to the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Again, it's a rather long purport. Factually speaking, even those who are situated in the material mode of goodness cannot understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then is to be said of those who are situated in Rajaguna and Tamaguna, the base qualities of material nature? How can we even imagine the Supreme Personality of Godhead? There are so many philosophers trying to understand the absolute truth. But since they are situated in the base qualities of material nature and are addicted to so many bad habits like drinking, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling, how can they conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? For them, it is impossible. For the present day, the Pancharatrika Vidhi as enunciated by Narada Muni is the only hope. Srila Rupa Goswami, therefore, has quoted the following verse from the Brahma Yamala. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidim Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Yaiva Kalpate. Devotion, this is the translation, devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra, is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. A quote is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12101. Those who are very advanced in knowledge and are situated in the mode of goodness follow the Vedic instructions of the Shruti and Smriti and other religious scriptures, including the Pancharatriki Vidi. Without understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this way, one only creates a disturbance. In this age of Kali, so many gurus have sprung up, and because they do not refer to the Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Pancharatrika Vidi, they are creating a great disturbance in the world in regard to understanding the absolute truth. However, those who follow the Pancharatriki Vidi under the guidance of a proper spiritual master can understand the absolute truth. It is said, Pancharatrasya Kritsnasya Vaktatu Bhagavan Swayam. The Pancharatra system is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like Bhagavad Gita. Vasudeva Sharana Vidur Anja Shaiva. The truth can be understood only by one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Vasudeva. Bahunam Janmanam Mante Jnanavamam Prapadyate Vasudeve Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sadurlabhaha. After many births and deaths, he who was actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Only those who have surrendered to the lotus feet of Vasudeva can understand the absolute truth. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yat Yasu Vairagyam Jnanam Shayad Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Srimad Bhagavatam 127. Therefore, Vasudeva, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, personally teaches in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Saranam Vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Bhagavad Gita 1866. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatvata. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. Bhagavad Gita 1855. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not properly understood, even by Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, what to speak of others. But he can be understood by the process of bhakti yoga. Maya Shakta Manaparta Yogam Yunjan Marashraya Asamshayam Samagramam Yata Ganashyasi Tachchanu. Bhagavad Gita 7:1. If one practices bhakti yoga by taking shelter of Vasudeva Krishna, simply by hearing Vasudeva speak about himself, one can understand everything about him. Indeed, one can understand him completely. Samagram. Okay. Phew. So, text 10 is not described by Srila Prabhupada in the purport as elaborately as 8, but let's look at exactly what Prabhupada is saying here. So he's making a big distinction between people who follow the Vedic scriptures, who follow the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and all the other scriptures that are given to us by the Supreme Lord. He's making a distinction between all of you, devotees who are following, with people who are not following. However, people who are not following any principles have set themselves up as philosophers and presenting themselves as knowers of the truth. But Srila Prabhupada, the first paragraph of this purport, he's pointing out their bad habits. Many of these people, he's saying there's so many philosophers trying to understand the absolute truth, but they're actually situated in the base qualities. And he's pointing out drinking, and he doesn't mean water and juice. He means alcohol. So they're drinking alcohol, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling. The 4 regular principles. We follow the 4 regular principles to avoid all these things. And Prabhupada is saying that people who are trying to understand the absolute truth are breaking every one of these principles. So Prabhupada says for them it is impossible. Perhaps we've heard that Prabhupada said impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. But here he's saying it is impossible for these people. There are things that are impossible. What Prabhupada was referring to was us following instructions usually. But so he's saying the only hope is the Pancharatriki Viddhi, as enunciated by Narada Muni. And in many verses in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada is very much emphasizing that devotional service is the process for developing love of God and for understanding the absolute truth, which is evading the so-called philosophers who have these bad habits. And then Prabhupada is saying how in this age of Kali, so many gurus have sprung up. So I made a list of, these are the gurus at the time that Srila Prabhupada was saying this. Got to pull out my list here. Because it wasn't that when Prabhupada came to America that he was the only one presenting a spiritual philosophy. There was others who arrived before him, like Vivekananda had arrived, I don't even know what year, but it was decades before Prabhupada. He had his followers. But mostly they were meeting in people's homes. And what Prabhupada, if you read the early volumes of the Lilamrita, there's that phrase, the uptown swamis. So, you know, it was a group of people who had come from India and were teaching some kind of religious philosophy, but they never established temples, they never really had big followings, but they were in the community, in the background. But the people who were up front, at least in America at that time, was like characters like Guru Maharaji. He was pretending to be a 13-year-old boy. I guess at one time he was 13 years old, but somehow he never got older. And, and you would see pictures of him wearing a Krishna crown, like a, you know, golden mukut with jari. And his followers were called the Premis. We did have a few devotees who came from that group. Not very many, but a few. He was prominent, and I remember that at one point somebody threw a pie in his face. And it was in all the newspapers, and Prabhupada laughed about it. I mean, he definitely, you know, this man is, he claimed to be God. He wasn't even saying he was a guru. He was saying he was God, so. He was one character. And then there was somebody named Reverend Moon. His followers are called the Moonies. I don't know really what they were preaching, but they were established. They had groups, they had buildings. Then there was the Transcendental Meditation guy. I think his name was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Was that his name? Yeah, okay. And he had a big following. In fact, at the time when the Beatles came to meet Prabhupada, they also were meeting with this Mahesh Yogi. And you see pictures of him. He looked very spiritual, you know, the beard, the long hair, the robes. And he would charge $35 to get a secret mantra. And this is going to make you pure, right? Then there was the Kundalini yogis. I think that they were connected with the yogi who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, which was quite an interesting book. But these people, I don't know if they established temples, but they definitely had large followings. And then, of course, there was, back here in India, there was Sai Baba with his big afro, and I think he still has a following, from what I understand. But he left his body, right? Just a few years ago. Yeah. So, and I'm sure there was more. There was all these different people who were pretending to have the absolute truth, pretending that they were capable of helping people reach a spiritual goal. But in this purport, Prabhupada is pretty straightforward. He's saying they just cause a disturbance. So he says it more than once in the purport also. So it's not a small thing to be able to realize the absolute truth. However, we do have a bona fide spiritual master. Now, Srila Prabhupada is referring to people who are under the guidance of a proper spiritual master can understand the absolute truth. Well, what he's not saying is, hey, it's me. You know, Srila Prabhupada is never like putting himself in, glorifying himself. But as his followers, as his disciples, that is our position, that we are not only allowed to glorify him, but it's a necessity. We really have to understand how glorious Srila Prabhupada is. And we know from our own lives. Like if you think about where you would be if Srila Prabhupada hadn't come to the West and spread Krishna consciousness. I mean, for myself, I'm pretty sure I would either have committed suicide or end up in a mental hospital. That just seems like my path. And so, you know, Prabhupada, I feel like Prabhupada just scooped me up out of the gutter of life and saved me. And does everybody agree that that's how they see themselves? Yeah? We all were saved by Srila Prabhupada. And even when you think about how many devotees met in Krishna consciousness and got married and had children and then grandchildren, and even some have great-grandchildren, and this is all created by Srila Prabhupada. I mean, like the generations are going on, and it's all coming from Srila Prabhupada's mercy. So, Srila Prabhupada, you know, in this purport, he's bringing up practically every well-known verse in Bhagavad Gita, ones that you probably have memorized, and at least the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure that even the children can quote Sarvadhaman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. In the old Hare Krishna movie, I think one of the little girls is chanting this verse, and she forgets and she wiggles up her nose. And I used to see this movie on stages here in India, and I'm telling you, the audience just loved that part. See, the beautiful children, they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're chanting the Vedic mantras, and it really was like one of those times when everybody's heart just went out. So, and now we have the new Hare Krishna movie, right? Has everybody seen it? Yeah, everybody's okay, good. So if you haven't seen it, figure out a way to see it. It's just called Hare Krishna. There's a subtitle, I can't remember exactly, it's a long subtitle, the mantra, the Swami behind it all or something, the Swami who? What? The mantra, the movement, and the Swami who made it all happen, or behind the, yeah, something like that. So hopefully people who see this movie will have a better impression of Krishna consciousness if if they didn't already have a good impression. And those of us who appreciate it was wonderful to see all the interviews and quotes, and it was really, they did a lot of research. It was very obvious that what they didn't just throw it together. It was very well thought out and executed. So I have something I say about myself that the only thing I can talk about nicely is about Srila Prabhupada. And so I want to make a request of the devotees, but I want to start by acknowledging that here in Mayapur, we do a very wonderful thing every morning. And that is, we recreate exactly what Prabhupada did every morning when he was here in Mayapur. So the small deity of Prabhupada comes off the altar, and he's offered charanamrita, he's offered water to wash his hands and a cloth to dry his hands, and then he's carried on the shoulders of the devotees, on his palanquin. He's carried around to each altar, and he gets darshan, and then when he comes around to where the overhead bell is, he rings the bell, and then which is all what he did when he was personally present, except that there was 2 bells, one on each side of the altar. And of course it was in the old temple room, which is the ground floor of the Lotus building, part of which we still get to use because Prabhupada's current Vyasasana is more or less where Radhamadava's altar was. But Radhamadava were facing in a different direction, facing towards the length of the building. Yeah. Is that west? Okay, so the deities are facing west, so we were facing east when we were worshiping the deity. So once Srila Prabhupada arrives on the Vyasasana, what happened in the old days was that we threw flowers at Prabhupada's feet. But what I see happening for many years is that we're not throwing the flowers at Prabhupada's feet. We're throwing flowers at Prabhupada's body, at his face, on his head. And in this regard, I want to tell you a story. So I lived in New Vrindavan in 1972. There was a big festival called the Bhagavatam Dharma Discourses, and it started in August, included Janmashtami and Vyasa Puja, but it was like 3 or 4 days of lectures, and then Prabhupada called that the Bhagavatam Dharma Discourses. So when I arrived at that festival, I was coming from a different temple. I was coming from Dallas. But I knew that I wasn't going back to Dallas, that I wanted to stay in New Vrindavan. So once I told them, I'm here to stay, they gave me a service. And that was for the whole festival, I was in charge of the flowers. I was in charge of garland making, vase making. There was the deities in the temple, then there was Radha Damodar deities who had come to the festival, and then there was garlands for Srila Prabhupada. So I was in charge of all of this, and we ran out of flowers very quickly, and then we had to start picking wild flowers in order to make the garlands. But anyway, one aspect of this service was that I was to organize some flower petals, and whenever Prabhupada would walk around the property, that someone would be right in front of him, in other words, walk backwards and throw flowers at Prabhupada's feet, or in his path as well. So, being the self-centered person that I am, I kept that service to myself. I was always a nectar seeker. So, whenever Prabhupada walked around, and it wasn't that he did it that much, there was sometimes when he would drive in a car to the Pandal program, and And he wasn't staying at the festival site. He was staying at a different farm, and so he would go by car. But whenever he was walking, I was there, throwing the petals in Prabhupada's path and on his feet. I had a basket, and I guarded it, but one day, one of the men grabbed, and I think it was a guest, okay? Not putting blame on the devotees, but somebody grabbed a handful of flowers and threw them on Prabhupada's head. And Prabhupada did not like that. He brushed them off, and I'm not sure if he gave the wagging finger, but it was definitely a no. He did not like that. So I have personal experience that our Srila Prabhupada did not like flowers on his head, and I don't think anybody likes flowers thrown directly in their face. Does anybody like that? No, nobody likes that. So my request to all the devotees is that we figure out a way that ourselves, we don't throw the flowers in Prabhupada's face or on his head, and we teach others, especially the children. The children have an overhand throw sometimes, but the proper and respectful thing is to just gently offer the flowers. So I know in some temples, like I come from Alachua, Florida temple, and we have a mold of Prabhupada's footprints, and we throw the flowers on the footprints. And there's even a sign on the Vyasa sign that says, "Do not throw flowers, it stains the cloth." So I don't know if we could come up with a way to handle this situation differently, but at least I want to make the request that all of you don't throw the flowers in Prabhupada's face and train others. So do you accept my request? Yes? Is there anybody who does not accept? Okay, we're all in agreement. Yes? Okay, good. So I don't know if we could I was thinking we have to get a huge bin if we wanted to have like a place to put all the flowers, because there really is a lot of flowers because there's so many devotees. Yeah. Yeah. Right, 2 steps there. There sort of is, okay, what Mahalakshmi is saying is there is a space in front of Prabhupada, the Murti of Prabhupada, but there's a small, for the small Murti, yeah, in front of the small Murti, but there is the big sign with Prabhupada's name that's also on the step. So maybe that can go on a step higher, and then, I don't know. There's room there, but it's hidden by that big sign. But it's an idea. It's a start. We have to think of something. I don't know how to make a difference in a change of policy and weight. It's always been a mystery to me when I come to Mayapur, how to get something done. Like, I just want to tell you all, last year, I've been so frustrated making the suggestion that the Srimad Bhagavatam board is the wrong shape. It should be a rectangle. The Bhagavat verses are long. And I made a donation of the cost of making a new Srimad Bhagavatam board. And here it is a year later, and it hasn't happened. Actually, I've been making the suggestion for years, but I thought if I put my money where my mouth is, then maybe it would happen, and it still didn't happen. So if somebody knows how to make that happen. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about, how squished the Bhagavatam verse is? It's hard to read. Pardon? Just go ahead to the carpenters. But you know, the carpenters have been replaced by a restaurant. Where the carpenters used to be is now a restaurant. Where did they move the carpenters to? Off campus. Anyway, it is possible to get a new board, right? That's the right shape. And then the boy who puts the verse on the board has to write it in a clear way. Like, I happen to have a propensity to be a sign maker. And I know there's a way to write letters that are clear and readable, and there's a way to make them so fancy you can't even read them. So, sorry, I have a very critical nature, but I'm also a proofreader, so, you know, I really would like to, I'd like to have a solution to this. Okay, so maybe with one of the Prabhu's help, we can get a carpenter to make the board. So, I know I had more things to say, but we had a lot of reading, and I'm open it up to questions and comments and critiques or whatever you want to say. When did I first come to Mayapur? I came to the 1975 Gaur Purnim Festival. No, not before 75. Yeah, I joined the movement in 71. I never even heard about festivals until 74. But Jananivas Prabhu has said that there was a festival in 72 and 3, but I think it was only devotees in India who knew about it. 74 was the first, like, what I would call the first international festival, and devotees all traveled together to India. We thought that was the only way to get here. You have to go as a group. And, you know, they had buses, meet the devotees at the airport, bring them here. I really wanted to come to that festival. I was so upset that I couldn't come. So I definitely came in 75. In fact, I was working with a BBT. It was still called ISKCON Press at that time, though. And everybody was going, except for me. Because I was typesetting, and we were really far behind. Composing, it's called composing. And we wanted to catch up to Srila Prabhupada. And really, I was typing as fast as I could. It was, because I was reading new things. You know, nobody had read these stories. And anyway, at the last minute, I said, I want to go too. I'm not going to stay behind. And I trained somebody up really quickly. And I got to come to the festival in 1975. But I did do a sort of a dirty trick. I stayed in India. I didn't go back. And the devotee who I had trained up, like, barely had trained her up. When I saw her years later, she was like, why did you do that to me? I didn't know what I was doing. That was Balai. She's a very wonderful devotee. One of the first ladies, actually, who joined in New York, Balai Dasi. And, yeah, I kind of pulled the rug out from under. But she, you know, obviously she learned, but still. I had told my authorities that I had somebody who replaced me, and, you know, it really wasn't quite the truth. It wasn't the full truth. As Prabhupada is saying, samagram, completely. It wasn't completely the truth. But the thing is, I stayed in India for 2.5 years. So I got to be where Prabhupada was a lot of the time. You know, and it almost looks like I followed him around, you know, but it wasn't quite like that. It's just that Prabhupada was spending a lot of time in India. So, okay, one time I did follow him, okay, but I went to the Ahmedabad Pandal, which was like in October, I think, September or October of 1975. But even then, there was extenuating circumstances. Like I got to type Prabhupada's letters. He would dictate what he wanted to Brahmananda Swami, who was his personal servant at that time, and then Brahmananda would make a tape and word for word tell me exactly what to type. And then I would do a rough draft, show it to Brahmananda. He would approve of it, make corrections or whatever, and then I'd type up the final copy. So I was doing direct service for Prabhupada, but it wasn't like I was coming in front of Prabhupada. I was just going to his quarters. and dealing with Brahmananda Swami. And anyway, by talking to him about what Prabhupada's schedule was, how he was going to this pandal, Brahmananda brought up that they had too much luggage. Like Prabhupada's international flights had a certain luggage allowance and less in domestic flights. So they had too many pieces of luggage, and he asked me if I would carry a piece, come to Ahmedabad and carry a piece of luggage, because I had a ticket to Bombay, and the flight to Ahmedabad ended up in Bombay. It was one of those, they stopped in Jaipur, they stopped in Ahmedabad, and then they went to Bombay. And my ticket was to Bombay. I wasn't even sure I'd be able to change my ticket to get off the plane early. And it was a scene at the airport, believe me. But anyway, I did go, and ultimately somehow they worked it out with the luggage. I don't know. I didn't end up carrying, but okay, in that case, I could say I, was sort of following Srila Prabhupada. And personal experience with Prabhupada? Well, there's one of my favorite stories. It is not in India, but I hope I can tell it quickly. It was in New York, and when Prabhupada was in America, we really didn't see him very much. We'd see him giving lectures. We might see him going on his morning walk. When I say we, I guess I mean the ladies, because ladies usually didn't go on the morning walk. So some of the men would go. But from a woman's point of view, it was, we'd see him leave on the morning walk maybe. We'd see him come back. We'd see him Guru Puja and class. And then the rest of the time he'd be in his quarters. And unless, as a lady, unless you're married to a temple president, you wouldn't get to go in to see Prabhupada in his quarters. And even if, the wife of a temple president didn't get a whole lot of association either, but they, at least she could go into his quarters. So as a brahmacharini, we weren't seeing him much. But we wanted to see Prabhupada off at the airport. And we wanted to be in the airport when Prabhupada arrived, just to see him a little bit more, So there was a group of ladies. We were pujaris. And we were talking about this. And so, two of the ladies were during the day, their main service was book distribution. They knew the airport inside and out. They knew all the back roads. And they had a car. They had a vehicle. So, Mother Shalavati, we called her Mother because she was like 15 years older than all of us. She was in her 40s. It was like so old. So Mother Shalavati was a head pujari, and I was her assistant, and then the two Sankirtan ladies, Bhumi and Sikandini. Our plan was to be in the Sankirtan vehicle when Prabhupada's car pulled away from the curb, so that we'd be right behind him. And then at some point, we'd go the back roads and get to the back door of the building, because back in those days, each airline had their own building. They don't do that anymore, but, well, maybe a few, I think. But mostly, they're all in one building. But this time, Pan Am doesn't exist anymore, but Pan Am was a big airline. They knew that building. Okay, this was the plan. Now, in order to be right behind Prabhupada's car, we had to forego seeing him off at the curb. Because if we waited to see him off at the curb, see him in his car, and then get to our car, forget it. We'd be way behind him. Okay, we get to the car. We have room for one more person, and this Bhaktin, her name was Bhaktin Miriam, who later became Dhriti, the artist. So Bhaktin Miriam was standing there holding this big bag, plastic bag, and we say, hey, we have room. You want to come with us? And she goes, okay, but somebody asked me to hold this bag. We go, bring it with you. Okay, so we're in, it all works. Prabhupada gets in his car. We are right behind him. We don't let any other cars between us. driving through the city streets, we are right there. We get on the highway, we are right behind Prabhupada. At one point, somebody says to Bhakti Miriam, "What's in that bag anyway?" She goes, "I don't know." She looks in the bag. It's a whole huge bag of flower petals. Whoa, okay. I think we might have had our own little bag, but, this is like major time, big bag full of flower petals. So we were happy about that. Now, along the highway, we're following Prabhupada, but at some point, we had to take the back roads into the Kennedy Airport to get to the back door, right? So in order to do that, first thing we did, for some reason, we got ahead of Prabhupada's car. I guess it was all the timing, And we're all like, wait a minute, we're not supposed to get ahead of the spiritual master. We're supposed to follow him. This is the wrong etiquette. But we're like, well, we have to do it. We have to do it. So as we're going by Prabhupada's car, we're all like with our hands in prayer, saying obeisances. The men must have thought we were completely nuts, which of course we were, but I don't know what Prabhupada thought of all this. But, but we got ahead of them, and then we're going to go, we took these back roads. But they're following us. Oh, no. They must have thought we knew something they didn't know or something. I don't know. But they followed us. And we ended up at the back door of this huge building, And like I said, everybody else was way behind because city traffic and everything and the highway. So we're the only ones. Prabhupada gets out of the car and we get out of the car. Like one of the girls had to drive the car and park it, but the rest of us were grabbing huge handfuls of flowers and we're walking backwards and throwing the flowers and, we're like 2 inches from Prabhupada. Felt like that anyway. Okay, we're a few feet from Prabhupada. And we were so happy. And we walked through the whole airport to get to, the VIP lounge where we're supposed to be. They, made some arrangement, and the girls knew where that, so we knew where we were going, but it was through the whole airport. So Prabhupada is sitting in this VIP room. I don't remember what he was sitting on, but we're all sitting in front of him, and slowly devotees are starting to arrive. And at some point, there's a commotion in the back of the room, and Prabhupada noticed it, and he goes, "What's going on?" And devotees said to Prabhupada, "Well, there's a man from the airport authority, and he says that we made a big mess on the floor. And he wants us to clean it up." And so then Prabhupada just looked at him, and he said, "You do not like flowers?" And then he turned to us devotees, and he said, "People can throw cigarette butts all over the floor, and no one will say anything. But flowers, they do not like." And needless to say, we did not clean the floor. Sorry. Hare Krishna. If you want to know about more stories, I wrote a whole book. Srila Prabhupada is coming. It's not a new book, but it is not out of date at all. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.